I get asked sometimes how to determine whether you have a bad wheel bearing or a bad ball joint. In the case of this element, I only have a lower ball joint. The upper is actually in the top head. I don't have a ball joint up there. So the best way to check is this. If you feel a vibration in the steering wheel or it's pulling one way or the other, when you turn right, if you hear a roaring sound, it's the left side. If you turn left and hear a roaring sound, it's the right side wheel bearing, generally speaking. Looseness in the steering could be in the tie rod end up here, or the inner, or in the steering rack. Lots of things that could be. But generally we want to check the ball joint and the wheel bearing. Now again, this is not an end-all be-all video. We're just addressing the issues that we're having here, and I wanted to show it to you. The best way to do it is get it off the ground. If you're on jack stands, put both front wheels up on jack stands. Get down, grab the wheel like this, side to side, and look at all that movement. You'd almost think the lugs were loose. Another check is up and down. That is a whole lot of movement. These lugs are tight. They haven't been adjusted. So now you might be saying, well, what's wrong? That's when we have to go look behind and see what's actually wiggling. So now we're looking at the back of the wheel, and I'm going to wiggle the side-to-side wiggle. You're going to see that axle moving. The axle's not loose, it is tight. I've double and triple checked it. So we've got a bad wheel bearing. That side-to-side movement is bad wheel bearing. Now, what I want you to also look at is right here. Boot on that ball joint's busted, but does that mean it's bad? The boot only being busted. It's not good, but is it completely worn out? Well, this test shows us, yes, that ball joint is completely worn out. So in this instance, we have a bad wheel bearing and a bad ball joint. And because it was not addressed, and this car gets a lot of miles put on it, now we have to do both. So here we are, doing both. So the first thing I did was I took this axle nut loose, because this axle won't budge. So I took it loose. It's in there good and tight. I took it loose, went and sprayed in there, because I'm gonna have to get this axle out of the hub here, excuse me. So I took this loose, sprayed it first. Then I'm gonna take two 17 millimeter bolts off to get the caliper bracket off, take the 12 loose here to get the brake line loose. Then once those things, and I'm gonna hang this, you might wanna secure this with a bungee cord or a wire or something. You wanna hang it up. Then I'm gonna start loosening other things. And for this one, I'm going to pull the axle, rotor's gonna come off. All of those things are gonna come off. Axle as well, because I'm pretty sure this is gonna be toast once I actually get it out of there. And we've got a new one in the box. I know they're notorious for vibrating. It is gonna be what it is, because this vehicle's gotta go on a trip here in just a few days. So this will kind of be a down and dirty, it's how I do it, okay? So if you do it different, great, good for you. We're not here to debate of how you should do this. This is not how you should do it, this is how I'm gonna do it, because I got two decades of experience doing this kind of work. So again, you know, this isn't a, you should do it this way. This is how I do it, and it works, and it does help if you have the right tools, but so here we go. We'll show you. I'm gonna probably have to wrestle with this because I don't think that's gonna wanna come out. That's why I went ahead and got a new axle. All right, so I've got it most of the way loose except for the bottom ball joint. And this rotor doesn't want to come off, so I'll deal with that when we get over to the press. I've sprayed it all. It will come out. We may have actually even salvaged this axle. I don't know. Probably not. Threads are pretty boogered. But again, we have an axle to go in it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reattach the top of this to take some of the weight off the bottom. And I'm also going to relieve the jiggle jack a little bit as well. Then I'm going to take this pickle fork because I'm not reusing this ball joint. I am going to smack the side of it first to see if it will come loose. It may not. This, to me, is a last resort. And also, you're not reusing a ball joint when you use this. Doesn't matter if it's tie rods. Doesn't matter if it's a ball joint, lower, upper. If you use this pickle fork, whatever you want to call it, ball joint, removal tool, etc., ad nauseum, you are not reusing that because it's going to tear the boot, period. Doesn't matter how dainty or gentle you are with this tool right here, you are going to tear a boot, and then all the grease will come out of the ball joint and it'll be bad. So again, I'm going to reattach the top, and then I'm going to give it a few taps, and then we're going to go from there. When I say reattach the top, all I really mean is I'm going to get everything out of the way. And then I'm just going to slide a bolt in. There's no actual real reattachment happening here. I'm going to ease the jiggle jack off. Then I'm going to take my hammer here, which is no slouch. She's no slouch. Not even sure how many ounces this thing is. It's heavy. I'm going to give it a few motivated swacks. We're close to coming out. So now I'm going to take the pickle fork, slide it up under that joint. Not real motivated to come loose. I'm gonna have to dip into my bag of tricks. Well, we didn't have to dig too deeply into the bag of tricks. Slid the pickle fork back in here, which I hate these things, by the way. Tap, tap, tap here, still wouldn't budge. Took the hammer, one good tap this way, and it came loose. So again, if you use this, you're gonna destroy that lower ball joint, period. The boot's gonna be ripped. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's really good with these and they never have torn a boot in their life. Great for you. I'm not that guy. If I use this tool, it's destroyed. And most likely for you, it will be as well. All right, so again, I am a one-man show here. So when I use the hammer, I don't usually video. Maybe later I get an assistant or something and they help me. Generally what I do first off is flip the spindle over, put it in a vise, take a socket, stick it right in here on the back side of this. Actually, that's the piece I cut off. That's not what I'm talking about. On the back side of this. And then I take and knock it out. I don't take it to the press. I take a hammer, boom, boom, boom. 5, 6 good motivated taps, it's out. But generally what happens is this collar, half the bearing shell, let's get that in focus, half the bearing shell, and you see I've whittled away on it, usually comes out with the stub. And you're left looking at something like that. And this piece is on here with no seeming way to get it off. All right. And again, I'm doing this the way a DIYer would do it with this toolkit here with a bearing press. You can get those on Amazon. I take my angle grinder, my Tabo right there, and I cut off. I don't cut all the way through to right there. You see I got through just a little bit right there. Let's see if we can get that in focus just a little bit, but not all the way through. I'm really actually just trying to put heat in this thing. So I almost cut all the way through, get some heat in it, and then I take a chisel, and this thing is seated. Let's see if I can get this in focus. Seated all the way up against it like that. And then I take the chisel and get a little separation, and then I just work it around until it comes all the way off. The heat in this collar is what makes it come off. And you can see how the color changed? That was from me grinding on it. The grinding obviously can jiggle the rust loose and everything else, but the heat, that's what I'm going for. So I knock this off. This is trash now. I throw it away. I leave this sitting here, and I'm going to move over to this. Now you can see there's rust in here around this clip, and it took the old snap ring pliers here, and it doesn't want to come loose. So the first thing we need to do is take a knife or a sharp object and run it around here and knock that film of rust loose first. Now I've got a chisel. Well, yeah, there we go. I've got a chisel here. I did it with this because I was using this chisel right here on the other piece, and you just go around it and score. Trying to break the rust up. You're not knocking anything loose, you're just breaking the rust up, and then you're going to spray it like I did. Now I've already done all that, and I've got to let this sit. I'm probably going to spray it again, because one thing you need to do is look in the box for your new parts. Did it come with a new C-clip? If it didn't come with a new snap ring, then you've got to save this one and reuse it. So you got to be gentle if that's what you're doing. Now I would obviously recommend that you get a new one. That's the best thing to do. If you don't get a new one, then you've got to reuse this one. So be careful as you remove it. So you'd really think that we live in the Pacific Northwest. We don't. We live in the Southeast. It's just rained a lot. And you'll see here, I've got snap ring pliers out. These aren't the best. These are just some old cheapies that I have a whole set of. Pulled out my good ones, and they didn't want to do anything, so go to the cheap ones. See what they want to do. So basically, you hook into the snap ring like this with the pliers. Generally, you're going to squeeze like this, and it's going to pop out, and you can see it squeezing. But right here, the rust is holding this back. So the only thing I can do is keep cleaning here, keep adding oil, and it will eventually break up. But we got to be patient with this, because like I said before, we got to reuse that piece. We're not going to not reuse it. We press the new bearing in, we're going to put that snap ring on. So patience. This is why a lot of people don't want to do their own wheel bearings, because it requires a ton of patience. You just got to go slow with some things. Other things you can go fast with. The first part, fast. I had that off in 10 minutes or less. This is what takes the time. So when you're paying somebody to put wheel bearings in a car and they're like, oh, it took extra. Okay, it's because something like this happened. This has got thousands and thousands of miles on it, probably with it bad, unknowingly. Because the ball joints toast too, so one or the other. Either the ball joint toasted this or this toasted the ball joint. Probably. Not likely. I'm not saying 100%, but it's probable that happened. So just want to say here, take your time with this. Don't tear it up. We got to reuse this. We got to reuse this. And we got to reuse this. So take your time. So now you see I've almost got it loose, and the answer was this. I took this straight punch. I set it right in here. Actually, I wiggled this out, took my screwdriver and got this side up. Took my straight punch here, tapped a few times after letting it soak for probably 10 minutes. And obviously, as you can see, it's going to come out now. So we're just going to take our snap ring pliers, latch into it. Oh, it's just going to come on out anyway. It's a loose tooth now. And there it is. And we saved it. It's not warped. It's not bent. We didn't destroy it. Perfectly reusable when we put it back on. So after a good deal of effort, here's the bearing. And you can see rust, obviously, but still got all the grease in it, but this thing has been, she's been going bad for a while. And when they're like that and they've been hot a few times, they can be extremely difficult to get loose. So, I put it in the hydraulic press. That didn't go well. And so then I came back over here to the vise and did it the old way. And that's not necessarily a good way, but it worked. So here we are. We're ready to install a new bearing once I get this cleaned up. And you may have noticed before that I bent the crap out of this dust shield. Unknowingly fixed that. So make sure when you're doing stuff like this, collateral damage, this is already bad, but collateral damage is a real thing. And when you damage parts, you have to replace them. So just keep that in mind. So you see I've got the new bearing going in. I used to hear guys all the time say, oh yeah, press the hub in with the new bearing. Well, how are you going to put that snap ring on the outside if you press them both together at the same time? So this is just a kit. You can get this on Amazon or whatever. I don't even remember which one I got. But this is just kind of how you press the bearing in. Sleeve on the back that fits the hole properly. On the front that covers the face of the bearing. I need to realign that one just a little bit. It's off. And then you just take some very large wrenches. What do we got here? 1 1/4 and I think 1 1/16. You press it in. Now, I stopped right here, and you'll notice that this is actually a different orientation than it was before. And the reason is that, you know, sometimes the bearings just don't want to go in straight. And so the thing to do is as soon as you see it get cockeyed, you stop, you tap the bearing back out very gently, and start again. You don't just hammer away at it and just send it, right? Or you'll be buying a new bearing. That's why I stopped. I repositioned and I tried this way because I actually like the smaller wrench on top. Make sure the bearing is going in straight. One other thing I'm going to mention is you tighten this up. You just want to get it until it's snug. No ugga-duggas, because when the bearing seats, if you keep pressing, there's a chance you could crush the bearings inside. So go all the way till it gets flush. And once it's flush and you feel it seat, one bump, and then you're done. Back it off. No ugga-duggas, and no put an air gun on this that you probably wonder, why didn't you just put an air gun on that? Because you could destroy the bearing. If you go in crooked, you could destroy the race. There's a whole lot of things that could go bad. Take your time with the wrenches, no problems. It went right in. All right, now that the bearing's in, we went ahead and put the snap ring in. I cleaned it up a little bit with a wire brush and a screwdriver. Eased it right in there with the snap ring pliers and it fell right in. I usually take the screwdriver and give it a couple taps here and here just to make sure everything is seated. All it takes is one of those falling out on you one time after it's been done and you go back. And you look on the inside and we're sitting flush right there. Everything is good. Just using the right adapters with the press. Now we're going to press in the hub and then we'll move on to this ball joint. Same with installing the hub. Set it right back up. Found the right adapters. I've already backed that off. That's why that's not even right there. You definitely want that to be even all the way around. I backed it off to check and make sure I was seated. And I am. But just to show you, these presses really work. All right, but it does take some arm strength, especially the first couple of pulls are pretty strong, and then once it's straight in there, it just glides right in. And on the tool here, attention, do not use impact wrench. And I completely agree with that. And you also want to oil the threads on this long bolt. I oil it every time I use it, that way you don't stretch them. And this is where we get into tools you may not have at home. So put out the ball joint press, pop the old one out, and yeah, it's like a limp. Oh, it's not a limp pickle that way, but it is a limp pickle that way. Got a real hard spot in it right there. And then just really want to. Took a hammer, popped that right out, and fell right out. No retaining ring was holding this one in. And so then we pull out the ball joint press and we press the new one in. And before I pressed it in, I took it over to the car and made sure that it fit the lower control arm. Because listen, sometimes you get the wrong part. Check it before you press it in. All right, so putting it back on is just reverse order. And you don't want to leave the bungee cord laying there. But to go back through it, you got these bolt here, this here, 12 here. I took these two 17s right down in here, 17 here and down below for the brake caliper and the bracket. These two screws, and earlier in the video, you're probably wondering, man, how did he get those screws off so easy? This rotor was replaced maybe 8 months ago. So that's why they were loose. I'm gonna clean this up too, that's nasty. So we're gonna clean that up before putting the wheel back on. Axle in, and yeah, I had to get a new axle in. It's not a good axle. So it is what it is. The threads out here boogered up, so it is what it is. I knew before that the axle didn't want to come out of this hub because of all the heat it had been through. So I pre-planned and brought an axle. Obviously you see there's no weight in there, so we'll have to deal with the vibration for a little while until we can get an OEM axle in here. But I'm gonna reassemble, put the wheel, clean this up first. I'm gonna clean this all up first. Then put the wheel back on, and then we're gonna check it for play. And you can see we got a new ball joint in there. All right, ready to go. And we'll check it for play when we get it all back together. All right, so we're gonna check this thing for play now. Nothing. Loose roller skate wheel before and ball joint. Ooh, I like that. Good and tight. So, that's going to conclude this video of compounded problem. All right, just fixing the wheel bearing would not have actually fixed the problem. We needed a wheel bearing. We needed a lower ball joint because it was completely worn out. It was a limp pickle. And then also the axle, end of it was boogered up. When I did the Bilstein install, the end of it was boogered up and I had to put that new nut on there. If you watched that video, if you haven't, go watch it. So we made the call tonight to go ahead and put a new axle on here. It's not an OEM axle, it's going to vibrate. I know that, and I'm okay with that until I can get an OEM in here. All that aside, make sure when you do a repair that you're actually fixing the problem. A lot of people see, for instance, code PO420 and they say, oh, my catalytic converter is bad. That's not what PO420 means. PO420 means that the rear oxygen sensor and the front oxygen sensor are not talking the same language, as in one looks like it's stuck, saying, oh, maybe nothing's happening, or maybe just the sensor's bad. That's why you have to go in and diagnose. You have to look at the problem, see what's going on, and then check everything else that can affect that problem. Now, on a side note, and to end this video, I do run a shop here in North Carolina called Classic Automotive. We do a lot, race cars and elements, Hondas, all kinds of cars. So if you need anything in North Carolina, give us a holler. Classic Automotive NC on Facebook and Instagram. If it sounds like I'm talking to you like I'm a high school teacher and you're a student, I apologize for that because I actually used to be a high school teacher for several years. So if it feels that way, I apologize. That's just the teacher that's still in me. Again, when I showed you how I did things today, that's just how I do it, all right? That doesn't mean it's the end-all be-all. There are many other ways to do it. Just throwing out there, that's how I did it, and it works. And it works fairly good, and it works easy, and it's quick. And I didn't destroy anything in process of doing that. Some things you can use a hammer on. Some things you cannot use a hammer on. So just throwing that out there. I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy this video.